our speaker for today, and some of you already know her because she has really stepped up to help us during this time. So we have Doreen van Leeuwen. She specializes in critical incident debriefing, as well as imago relationship couples therapy, telemedicine, and integrating cutting-edge neurobiological treatment strategies into her therapeutic approach. In 2002, she attended a 2-day seminar in CISM and has debriefed impacted employees in well over 100 incidents. Doreen serves on the board of RECAMFT as a director at large, and she is also running for president-elect. And she's facilitating the RECAMFT Disaster Response Committee, and she has an office in Santa Rosa. Welcome, Doreen.
Well, I am really excited, a little nervous, but happy to be here this morning, and I'm really thrilled that you're here because you're taking care of yourselves by doing that. What I'm going to ask is that we hold questions to the end today because this kind of has a flow to it, and so rather than interrupting with questions, I'd like to just kind of keep moving through, and then just we'll take some time towards the end. Hopefully we'll have a few minutes. And I've invited Kate Willens, who is a spiritual care. She is a clinical chaplain, and she's also applying to go into a program for psychology right now, whenever she gets accepted. So she's going to become one of us, and she's going to do an invocation for us right now.
Now is the time of dark invitation. Beyond a frontier you did not expect. Abruptly, your old life seems distant. You barely noticed how each day opened, a path through fields never questioned, yet expected deep down to hold a treasure. Now your time on earth becomes full of threat. Before your eyes, your future shrinks. You lived absorbed in the day-to-day, so continuous with everything around you that you could forget you were separate. Now this dark companion has come between you. Distances have opened in your eyes. You feel that against your will, a stranger has marred your heart. Nothing before you made you feel so isolated and lost. When the reverberations of shock subside in you, may grace come to restore you to balance. May it shape a new space in your heart to embrace this fire as a teacher who has come to open your life to new worlds. And that's from John O'Donoghue. Bless the space between us. Thank you. Great.
There are several stations here of self-care. One of them is with Liza. Liza's last name is Clark, that's right. Hi, Liza Clark over there. And she is an orthopedic manual therapist and massage therapist. So you might want to go over there and get some of her ministrations. Kim's going to be with us for a few more minutes. Kim is an office mate with Erica, right? That's so great. Let's see, Healing Harp Songstress. That is Kate, and so Kate called me up out of the blue and said, I'd like to volunteer, I have skills, I want to help, please, what can I do? And then she said, I play the harp, and I said, oh, that's wonderful, come on down. So we arranged, and in a little while, we're gonna do a writing exercise. I have a few sheets of blank paper here. I brought a whole bunch, but I think some of them are in the copier machine, so if we need more blank paper, maybe colleagues could give a sheet out, because we're going to do a writing exercise as part of our grief ritual today. So let's see what else. I'm going to hand around this clipboard. I received a request from somebody at Sonoma County, and she is looking for Spanish-speaking therapists for Spanish speakers in the community who are grieving and who have lost. It's Maritza Dragoman, if some of you know her. And she said that we had identified Bob Dalzell, Erica Thomas, Maggie Minervizik, and Courtney Breed as Spanish speakers. But if any of you are and are willing to participate in providing some free sessions, you can sign up on here. So, and then I will pass that information back to her. If any of you would like a copy of the slides, we can make that happen. Joe will send them out, and I think he's got a copy of it.
They'll be on the website.
Oh, they'll be on the website. Perfect, great. All right. Let's see, everybody knows where the restrooms are, and restrooms are across the hall, straight across the hall if you need them. So I want to thank all these people. You know, we've had quite a tribe to put all this together, all this whole morning. Laura couldn't be here, but she's part of the communications that go out. And of course, we have Gail, who does the newsletter. So we've had a lot of folks helping with getting our morning together. I'm wondering how many people here have been impacted by the fires. Oh, everybody. Oh, okay. I thought so. Let's see. So here's the title, Self-Care and Community Care in the Aftermath of the 2017 NorCal Fires. So that's a little bit what we're going to do. Well, here's my objectives for today is we're going to talk about self-care. I'm going to share a little of my experience. At some point, very soon, Judith is going to hand out symptoms and triggers sheet, right? You want to get started? You can start setting to get out. And then we're going to do a grief ritual. There's, I'm going to talk about recommendations for your recovery and renewal. And then we'll talk a little bit about what is going on in the community that the community still needs, your personal response, the American Red Cross's response, and then RECAMFT's response. At the end, there will be some literature and organizations and other things that you can tap into for your own edification, learning, growth, development, healing, and all of those are on the slides, so that's going to be available. This is not going to be a mostly educational seminar as far as disaster response. This is more focused on a grief ritual response. So on the afternoon of October 9, I got dressed up in my mother's hat that she had worn in the 1940s. It's a hat, it looks kind of like a bowl, and it's covered with chicken feathers. And I had on a long dress, and I put on pearls and all kinds of necklaces. And my daughter and I went over to the tea room. You know the Tudor Rose tea room on 4th Street? And we had a lovely, lovely, elegant little tea party with the two of us. And we walked out, and she was holding my arm, and it felt so comforting. It was like, oh my gosh, this is what it feels like to my mom when I hold her arm and walk her down the street. And it was my daughter giving me that gift. And not 5 hours later, she's banging at my door. Mom, Mom, all of Santa Rosa is on fire. Get up, you have to get up, pack your stuff. So, you know, what a shock. I mean, I jumped out of bed, and she lives in the apartment above me, so we are very close to each other. And so I'm running around the house figuring out, you know, in a fog, really, literally, I'm in a fog thinking, I've got to get stuff together. Well, I've got my Red Cross bag and I've got my Go bag. Which one should I take, or both? Oh yes, but I need to get all my papers with all my documents. And I'm thinking, what documents do I have? Well, most of them are in a box, but not all of them. So I'm sorting through my file cabinets, pulling out papers, trying to put that all together, running back in the other room. How many underwear should I take? Who cares, But really, I was just in a fog. How many of you experienced anything like that? Was it just horrible? And I'm just thankfully, I don't tend to, I'm not a panicky person, but it was more like I just felt scared, like I'm going to forget something important. And then there was the realization that I emptied my storage and I've got boxes of stuff. Boxes of stuff in my little tiny apartment. And I have no time to even find where my pictures are. And I just thought, you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is get the documents, get a few clothes, and be with my family. But then I thought, well, yeah, but I'm a Red Cross volunteer. I've got to get down to the shelter. I've got to help the Red Cross. So I loaded up my, what do you call those things? The fire-resistant, burglar-proof safe. That's, like at 4:30 in the morning, I'm getting this thing in the car, and all, my bags and everything. And I'm thinking, it's time to head for the Red Cross. So I would head down to the vet center. Have you ever seen an anthill when you pour some water on it? What happens? They just go crazy, don't they? Yeah. And that's really what it looked like at the vet center. I mean, there were just people running everywhere. Nobody knew what to do or what was going on. Of course, nobody had any information about anything. And people that are pouring in, all the evacuees, are all wanting to know something. Everybody's asking what's happening, where are the fires, when will we be able to go home? And it's, this is Monday. I mean, we've got like almost 2 weeks worth of fires ahead. It was so tragic watching these buses with these poor people coming from the hospital because they had to empty Kaiser and they had to empty Sutter. So here's these huge buses and these people are being, taken off and put into this. And can you imagine how disoriented they must have been? I mean, I think about me and I'm reasonably healthy and I don't have a lot of illness, but to be taken out of your hospital room and being forced to have to go to a shelter, it was pretty incredible. I just walked around trying to be useful and going up to people and asking what they needed and bringing a blanket or bringing them some water or showing them where the bathroom was. I felt pretty darn useless, even though I'm trained and I'm a therapist and I've got my disaster certification. I just kind of felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I'd go up to Mike Conroy and I said, what would you like me to do? And he says, just whatever you think is useful. So that wasn't a whole lot of help. And then by the middle of the day, I'm realizing that I'm just petering out. And even though, I want to stay longer, I'm just out of energy, and I know they're going to need people at night. So I decided I'm going to go home, I'm going to rest for a while, and check in with my family. And of course, every half hour to an hour during this time and during the night to come, my youngest daughter is texting me, Mom, are you okay? Where are you? What's going on? How are you? Because she's just really scared. So my youngest daughter lives about a mile from where I live. And I remember her coming over at some point in the day and, just tears. She was just so upset. She was evacuated from her apartment. Luckily, we were all okay. All the, our dwellings are fine. But just, seeing the sadness on her face, my heart was just breaking for her. And then her boyfriend, who had a big test, which has to do with him becoming an electronics engineer, he was just stressed out. And I could see as we were together the next few days, he has some tick. And the poor fellow, you know, the tick was just so pronounced. He was very, very anxious. And I could see he could not put his phone down. Did any of you have sort of a phone addiction during TV addiction? Okay, yeah. And then once we found out about Nixle, you know, like who knew about Nixle, right? I sure never did. Yeah, and now everybody knows about Nixle. Okay. So then the following night I went back to the shelter, and there were people in the, what is it, Finley Hall with their pets. Talk about breaking your heart, you know, seeing these people there, you know, holding their cats in the bed or their dogs, and the big dogs laying on the ground next to them, and you know, this went on for days. The beauty was that there were so many volunteers pouring in to help. There were piles of dog food, you know, within 2 days. I mean, there was so much dog food. They probably had dog food for a year. and once everybody got enabled, you know, brought in, there were a lot of resources, and people really mobilized quickly. It was just brilliant. It was amazing to see how our human swarm, began to organize. And kind of like the ants, we all had our roles, and we really began to function more smoothly and as a team. And then all of a sudden, I'm getting a call about, you know, can you put together a training for our organization? And I'm doing critical incident debriefing. I'm already getting bombarded by calls from the companies that I work for to go and do corporate debriefings for all the people that have been impacted. I went 3 days to be with the people at Santa Rosa Memorial Hospital. I think that there were over 150 doctors and nurses and other staff people at just that hospital that lost homes, only that hospital. And I'm thinking, wow, you know, that's like a huge proportion of the people that are in healthcare that are providing, and at a really critical juncture, and then they're the ones that are getting wiped out. And some of them were coming to work anyway. It was like, well, what else am I going to do? There's nothing at home, you know, I might as well show up to work, you know, kind of that gallows humor, like. And some of them, I think that was just for them, the best way I can cope is to be here and to do something useful for other people, is kind of that's how I can not be in the pain of what I'm dealing with. So those were some of my experiences. I've gotten to sit with lots of individuals. I've gotten to sit with people in groups. One of the comments somebody made that lost their home that struck such a chord for me was, I never want to own that much again, because I don't want to have to lose that much again. Yeah. Another one was, everything reminds me of this. When I reach for my coffee pot, it's not there. When I reach for my favorite wooden spoon, it's not there. And just to think, you know, everything in her life was a trigger, because it's a reminder of everything that is not a part of my life anymore. But another one said, I'll never have to paint those baseboards. And I won't have to clean up that garage. And so, you know, in the middle of all that grief, there's also people who just have just an amazing sense of resilience and humor. And that's really what this is all about. So, let's see. Do you all have your list with symptoms and triggers? I'm going to ask you to take a minute and mark on the list any of the ones that apply to you. Not necessarily just today, but since October 9th. And what I'm going to invite you to do right now is gather in a group of maybe 3 to 4 people close to you. Just turn your chairs for a minute. But watch your waters, watch your coffees, please. And so what you're going to discuss right now in your small group is, what did you experience during the disaster? And what are you observing about your response now? So we're going to take about maybe a minute or a minute and a half each to talk about what did you experience during the disaster? And what are you observing about your response now? How has it shifted? What's changed? Maybe it hasn't changed. But you're just going to share, kind of touching in, what you went through and where you are now. And yeah, go ahead. Okay, everybody, we're going to reconfigure. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Great. We're going to reconfigure. And what you have on the back side of the list that you just filled out, you have some empty paper. But not for long. Because those of you that went to the Francis Weller workshop remembered we did a little ritual in there, a writing ritual. And it was a writing ritual in which you put pen to paper and you write. And you keep your pen on the paper and you keep writing, and whatever words come, you write them, so that you're going to put away your inner critic, the one that would censor you. So you just write whatever shows up. And we're going to do this for 10 minutes. And the prompts, I'm sorry, for some reason it keeps dropping my PowerPoint, but here is the prompt. I grieve. I have lost what I imagine I have lost, what I think about my losses, what I feel about my losses. Please pick up any of those. You don't need to. I'll tell them again. Just pick one. You don't need to write about all of them, okay? I'm giving you a variety to pick from, because you may not resonate with the one that just one. So I want to give you several. Or you can write on something else. It's fine. I grieve. I have lost what I imagine I have lost. what I think about my losses, and what I feel about my losses. Ready? Begin. Time. So lift your pen from the paper, even if it's mid-sentence. And for those of you that would be willing to share in your little groups what you've written, I'm going to encourage, and let's keep our groups small, because if you have 8 people and you have to read them all, then that's going to make it a long turn. And you're just going to read what you've written, and the others will say thank you at the end of the reading. Don't make any comments, no discussion. You just read what you've written, say thank you, and then the next person reads what they've written. So the title of my work was Now What? But the next step of my work is Here's What? And so we're going to talk for a couple of minutes about what the community needs. Yes? Is it on? Can you hear me? On? Yes? Okay, better. All right, so community needs. So we've talked, you've had an opportunity to do some processing here, which is really, really important for yourself to kind of unload and unpack at least some of what you've been going through. I'm sure there's more, and it's going to take time to keep doing this. Oh, there's a good idea. We can do back rubs for each other. So one of the here's what is how to continue to protect your own resilience, to maintain it, to nourish it, to build it even stronger. One of the things that we're doing today is honoring the grief that you're feeling by allowing you to sit with it, express it, discuss it, hear others and how they're interacting with it. And it's a process that is often like the ocean, where it's waves of emotion, waves of thoughts that are going to wash over you. And they'll come, and they'll crest, and they'll rise, and they'll peak, and they'll curl, and they'll crash, and then they'll swish up the shore, and then they recede back into the whole of who you are. And so those waves are going to continue to come, and that's part of how we heal, is honoring that we have those waves that continue to keep coming and coming, just like the ocean. You can't turn it off, can you? I think being in community like this is really important. It helps to be with other people, to connect. I know that I really love being part of a group. I'm feeling a little apart from the group today because of being in a leadership position. But I know that just your hugs, your warmth, your coming up and thanking me is grateful. But aside from that, not all the affirmation and the validation, but just, hey, Doreen, we're glad you're here. I love you. Or, it's so great that you're my colleague. Those kinds of things, just that presence of the other is so special right now. And I'm hoping that we can continue to nourish that among each other. What you find, too, is that I think it was Kate saying, people that we're staying with her during this time that now feel like family. And I think that bonding around a trauma is very potent, and it lasts, that you really connect with those people in a different and new way. And then seeking personal connection. I think what I mean by that is finding, friends, your family, other ways to connect with nature that help you to stay grounded. Because, of course, all these different things are going to come spinning your way, and you need to keep coming back into some kind of an anchor, an inner core, in order to be able to withstand all the things that are coming your way. Seeking good health is really important. I don't have to go into the basics about that. You know what to do. If you don't by now, we're not going to learn if we haven't learned it by now. But also seeking some form of a divine connection, I think, is really helpful, that it's not just about us, but something that's bigger than ourselves, seeking to serve. And so many of you have stepped up to be volunteers and to give of yourselves. And being there for other people is so helpful. It kind of gets you out of your own mind. And then I think seeking nature, so that when we're observing something beautiful, and even something as simple as, buying yourself one single stem and bringing it into your house, and paying attention to that, and just knowing that, each representation of nature, a single leaf, it contains the whole. And so by concentrating on just that leaf, you can connect with that all that is so bigger than us. And I hope that you continue to do lots of good self-care over the weeks and months ahead, because as you do, you're going to be able to provide that self-care or that care for the community. What our community is going to need is a lot of cleanup, huh? Yeah, tons and tons of cleanup. It's going to need basic shelter, food, water, health care. There's obviously huge needs for disaster mental health care, but also there's going to be opportunity for redevelopment and planning. And this gets exciting in a way, because you think about all that's gone, like when I lived up in Big Bear, I remember after the first big snow, everything was kind of clean. And in one way, a burning is a cleansing. You think about, I can't think of the word, but when you put something into, to purify and to get the gold out, that process that happens. Alchemy, that in a way this is a kind of an alchemy for Sonoma and Mendocino and Lake counties and all the surrounding counties that have been impacted, that together we can create something much richer and much more beautiful through this process. But it takes a lot of wise minds and a lot of patience and a lot of understanding and I think involvement, like getting involved. Somebody said, I wish we could see lots and lots of tiny houses. Yes, I'm down. Sounds good to me. Or cooperative housing, people buying into a nonprofit housing experience. Awesome. Obviously, it takes a keen awareness of our fragile communities, and there's many, the Hispanic and other communities that don't have the resources that some of the other communities do have. It's going to be much more difficult for those people to rebuild. They don't have insurance on their house, or they were living in a rented place, and now where are they going to go? They're just on the edge, as it were. And so a tragedy like this can really push them too far. It's like they cannot recover. So when we're mindful about that and we can step up and help in those places, that's so important. And then there's the infrastructure that needs to be rebuilt, and that's going to take a long time in some of these areas that have been devastated. And of course, funds, getting the money from FEMA to all the individual people. I mean, you think about all the different arms and legs and the ways that this disaster has impacted us. And, how do you get that money to where it belongs and in a timely way so that people can get the money when they need that money? And my concern is that right now we still have, are kind of on that wave of goodwill. But what's going to happen is that as that goodwill wears off, or as many of us kind of move back into life as usual, that we sort of forget, or we go into kind of a denial or an amnesia about what's happened. I know I can even get there. I mean, if I just travel around in my little downtown Santa Rosa circuit, I don't even have to see the devastation. And it would be very easy for me to go into a little denial that anything's wrong out there. So it's like a continuous, I guess for me, making it a presence inside me that this is still real, and how can I be part of that? But then also being realistic that I can only be a part, because there's a, just stretch to the max. Okay, how many CIRs can I fit in between my clients and writing these presentations and before I drop dead? What good is that going to do anybody? All right, so it's that feeling of, okay, I have to really watch that. Be careful. Remember that there's only, I've got limits, and we all have our limits. So please, let's be on, and if you see your partner or your colleague going gung-ho, and my friend Gail might whisper in my ear and say, Doreen, slow down. You're overdoing it. You're going to hurt yourself. Take care. So do that for each other. I'm sorry that my presentation is falling apart on us, so that's all I'm going to say about it. And now I'm just going to keep on going, and the slides are there for your use. In terms of the personal, of what you personally can do to respond to this, apart from any organization, committee, whatever, is to develop a personal, family, and work disaster plan. And practice it. Because it's not good enough to have your go bag. You need to know that when the time comes, you're going to remember to take your go bag. Because I heard stories of people who had them, but in the panic, left without their go bags. Okay?
Can you say what we really should have in a go bag? Is that possible, or is there a resource we can go to to find that out?
The AARP bulletin, if anybody gets an AARP bulletin, they have a one-page go bag thing with a nice little picture and description of each item, and it's really nice and concise. The one that just came out, the one for the fire.
Coincidental.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. Great.
I'm sure it would be on there online on the website.
Oh, I'm sure. Right. And if you go to good old Google, Google will tell you what you need in your go bag. Or Edge, or Bing. Find ways, and then the next personal would be find ways that you want to volunteer that suit you, that fit with who you are. If disaster mental health is not your thing, that's okay. There's lots of us who are doing that, and you don't have to do that. So you can do something else. You can help out at a food bank, or you can assist, Catholic Charities would love to have your help. There's all kinds of things you could do.
You could probably go to some of the centers for the animals and just walk some animals, or sit and hold some animals that are still not connected with anyone.
Beautiful. There's a suggestion to go to a pet shelter, an animal shelter, and hold or walk or sit with the animals that may still not have found their owners back.
I'll speak on that real fast, let you know I have a friend who does volunteer at the shelters, and they've actually had a decline in volunteers because they've been overwhelmed. So
Oh.
they do need volunteers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a good volunteer opportunity if you need some animal time.
Does Catholic Charities work with the homeless? Because that's becoming quite a problem now, as far as the fire.
Very much so.
Okay.
That's a big part of Catholic Charities' work, is to work with the homeless. Absolutely. And Hispanic and Latino communities. Any fragile community, yes. You can join the American Red Cross. I'm going to beat my little drum. All right. I think some of you wanted to join with the Red Cross even now and found that it was almost impossible. And as much as they said something about having event-based volunteers, EBVs, to be able to step up, getting through the red tape and the whatever criteria, it wasn't working because the Red Cross is stretched way thin right now. I mean, they've had so many events and they've got people deployed everywhere. They were just really hurting for people. So another option is, of course, to join, become part of the RECAMFT Crisis Response Listserv, and you could serve on that committee, and so that's another option. And then if you are a licensed professional, you can get some training to do the critical incident in a corporate way, and then you can actually make money doing it. So that's another option. And if you want to find some ways to do that, you can talk to me, but I also added some information about that on the slides. So when you look at the slides online, you can see all the links and information there to pursue that. Let's see, the American Red Cross response, what they are doing and have done and will continue to do is that they have opened the shelters for displaced citizens, and generally what they do is they will keep a shelter open until all people have some other form of shelter. And they do their best to try to get them either to family, into a hotel situation, or into a long-term placement. And as you noticed, they provided, cots and blankets and little pillows, and they organize with different agencies in the community to get food there. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of meals that were served for people, just unbelievable. They work to try to reunite people. You would see, 600 people are missing. And what would happen is people would take off in different cars and they would get separated, and then they would end up at different shelters because the police were directing them in different directions, and so they would lose their family members and didn't know where people were. Monday, I didn't have any cell phone service. Maybe many of you on October 10th. How many of you experienced that? All I could do was text, but I couldn't call anybody. And so that was really scary. So I think that that's one of the things that they work really hard to do. They provide some amounts of financial assistance. They're small, but they're enough to try to get people some clothes or into some shelter, or be able to provide for some food for temporary. They have something called an integrated condolence and care team that goes out when people have been lost, and then they provide up to $500 to help with a burial for that person, or some kind of funeral arrangements. So there's a lot that the American Red Cross steps in and tries to provide, but it's just, like the first little step up, trying to, get people back on their feet again. What we are doing in this community is that we have provided $500 grants to each member of our organization that lost a home. We also waived the fees for the coming year for those people to be part of this organization. We've written a letter to the RECAMFT board to ask them to waive fees for those same people. We've provided and are continuing to provide training in disaster mental health. The video of my training is online, and then there's a page devoted to all kinds of resources there so that you can help yourself to those handouts or get some information there as needed, and we'll try to continue to post things there that are useful to you. Then we are doing today's self-care presentation. And let's see, for
Sunday meeting.
and then the next thing that we're doing, because there's like three, I broke it kind of into three steps. One is all the things I just mentioned. The second is that we've put together a committee called the Northern California Fire Response Task Force. So far, we've got, I think, 8 people from our group, and Kate is planning to come and join us as well. So if others of you want to come, we're meeting Sunday 3 to 4:30. It's going to be at my house. I'll serve tea and cookies, and we're going to start thinking about how can we effectively respond to the community in the months, probably up to a year ahead. I've already got a conversation going with somebody from Coffee Park who wants us to facilitate a group, an ongoing group for neighbors of that community. I think, to me, I'm so excited that that connection has happened, because that's exactly what I want to see happen. And that if we can get emissaries out to all these different communities, get those neighbors together, if that's what they want to do. If that's not what they want to do, then let's hear what it is that they want to do. So it's not just up to us to come up with some design whole again, and then how can we step into that? And so any and all of you that want to help, and it's like, at my church we have a sign that says, the only arms and legs and feet and hands that Jesus has is ours. And that's kind of how I think about it, is that, we're it. And so we're out there loving on people and giving them what they need emotionally and mentally and spiritually to be able to survive and hopefully move towards thriving again. And then, let's see, as individual practitioners, you can sign up to do 3 to 5 free sessions at our RECAMFT site. If you are a member of CAMFT, I think, or RECAMFT, you can do that. I don't know if anybody can do it, but.
RECAMFT members and Marine Camp members.
Okay, can sign up there to offer 3 to 5 pro bono sessions. So that's what we're doing for that. Let's see. Then there's going to be some slides, and I think we're out of time because it's 1 o'clock, so I'm going to stop. But they're there, and you can look and use your eyeballs to check them out. Let's see what else. Yeah, I think that's it. That's really what I want for you to hear from me. And that I think when I think about Doreen, like if I can leave the legacy I want to leave, that it's that when I die, I will have been a lover.
Well,
Yeah.
you are indeed, and thank
That's what I want.
you so much.
Wonderful.